Hey everybody, this is Kevin from Nerdy for 30. My co-host Tim Keck and I want to tell you to get out there and vote. Not for your local elections though, I'm talking about something that really matters, like what TV shows and movies we cover on this podcast. See, the problem is there's too much big stuff coming out in October. You got She-Hulk, you got Lord of the Rings, Game of Thrones, buzzy pop culture stuff like Don't Worry Darling, and then also old seasonal classics like Scream and Hocus Pocus. We put a little bit of everything on the ballot, and we value your time, so we want to know what you want to hear the most. So make your voice heard. Go to nerdyfor30.com, that's nerdy, FOR30.com, to cast your vote and make an impact today. Gentlemen, hello, and welcome to Nerdy for 30, the podcast where comedian Tim Keck and I talk about nerdy-ish things for 30-ish minutes. Today, we're talking about a very interesting movie. This is a movie that we did not manage to get to right when it came out. There were a lot of movies going on at the time. I'm so glad we circled back to it because there's a lot that I want to say about this. I will stop vamping. It is The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent starring Nic Cage. Tim, what did you think of this movie?
Dude, worth the wait, bro. I had a great time. This is fun. Nic Cage. This is some myth building for Nic Cage. This is the complicated feelings I have about this kind of artistry, right? Of like an actor playing themselves is because then I start wondering who Nic Cage actually is and if he's actually a good guy. And he comes out from this movie making me think he's like Keanu Reeves level blessed of just like, you know, sweet guy who makes everybody feel good. Like Keanu Reeves is just like a universal approval. And I wonder if Nic Cage does. I can't really tell, you know, like Brendan Fraser's making a comeback now. He did The Whale and apparently got a huge standing O at whatever that thing is. You know that thing that's like a real life Rotten Tomatoes where they have a whole festival and then everybody stands and claps for like 25 minutes. And that's like how you tell if a movie's good.
Yeah,
you know.
That's what the Rotten Tomatoes come in.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an embarrassing, you know, it's a lot of backslapping, but you know, Brendan Fraser deserves it. He seems to be like a universally beloved guy. I don't know if Nic Cage is a universally beloved guy, but I want him to be, man. I want him to be.
Yeah, he's definitely universally known. He's definitely, I think what was so impressive about this movie for me is the fact that he is kind of a joke to a lot of people. Like Nic Cage was treated as a punchline for most of our adolescence and adulthood. And then that thing happened where I think it's maybe an extension of the idea of no press is bad press, where because he was so well known, it just became a thing where somebody goes from being an actor to being an icon. Like he passed icon status maybe 5 to 10 years ago, somewhere in there. And past that point, it's like, well, Nic Cage is amazing, but there's still a little bit of irony in there. Like I remember being in college and the talk was that Nic Cage was bankrupt, right? Like, wasn't that one of the big things?
Yes.
He was doing The Sorcerer's Apprentice because he was allegedly bankrupt because he had all these houses and stuff. And people were like, Nic Cage, he was in National Treasure, but like, look how insane he was in Con Air. Can you believe that people used to think he was a sex symbol and he almost played Superman? Like, just a complete removal from how society viewed Nic Cage when he first came onto the scene. And then, yeah, slowly over time, I think everybody just adjusted to that joke version of Nic Cage until it's like, I don't know, the kid in your high school that everybody kind of made fun of, but it's like, hey, but like, we're cool, right? Like, you're a good dude. Richie, you're a good guy.
It's the guy you always give, like, is always made fun of, but also is like loved by everyone. You know, like there is a soft spot for Nic Cage in Community. I remember they had like an episode of like on the TV show Community, they had a whole class that was just on whether or not Nic Cage is a good actor. And then Abed, who's just like, you know, kind of the stand-in for Dan Harmon or like a fourth wall breaker, just has like a nervous breakdown trying to decide if he's a good actor. I'll say it. Nic Cage, good actor. He's good. He is very, very good. And I do want to get into this, like, I forget what he called the shamanistic approach to acting. Have you dug into this at all?
No, is this a real thing?
This is a real made up thing by Nic Cage that he actually believes in and subscribes to, that they've incorporated into the movie as part of his character. And it's what makes this whole thing like so much more interesting to me. Like, I did some research online, and he's basically talking about how like shamans and mystics are the original storytellers and actors, because they're convincing you, they're making you believe in this world that they are creating, and they're like carrying the legacy of these people. And so when they're acting, they're actually like kind of hamming it up a little bit, like they're selling it more. Like, he really believes in like not being grounded. He thinks you also need to like sell. He believes in selling. So he never does a role where it's like, oh my God, this is like a real person I would meet on the street. He's always amplifying it because he thinks that's part of like, he refers to, I'm going to look up what he refers to it as, but it is like shamanistic, whatever acting style that he attributes to like mythic tribal storytellers. And he views himself as like that kind of a character, if that makes sense. And it's really fascinating. And I think it makes a ton of sense when you look at his movies and when you view what he's doing as intentional, whether or not like he's a genius, right? If all these choices he's making are intentional, he's a genius. If they're a happy accident, then maybe he's not good at acting. But I choose to believe that he is like making all of these choices, like, you know, in the moment. And he is actually a prodigy.
Well, it's so funny you bring that up about whether or not it's intentional, because you look at some other people that have really distinct methods of acting, and it definitely reads as intentional. The other people you brought up, Keanu Reeves, he's definitely one. More recently, Matt Berry, some of the classics, John Malkovich, Christopher Walken. Like, these are all people that I remember reading the thing about Christopher Walken that allegedly he goes through a script, takes all of his characters' lines and removes all punctuation because he decides how things are said, where sentences begin and end. It's all up to him. I think that's fascinating. Like, it definitely does add something that's specific to them. And when you're an actor in Hollywood and actors are so replaceable, I mean, bringing something truly special to the table is really cool.
Yeah, he refers to it as Nouveau Shamanic. And he said, you know, in which he read about he was basically researching the parallels between ancient shamans and thespians and adopted this. So he's referred to it as like a kabuki, like Western style, where he's amplifying all of this stuff. On top of that, apparently he is like an extreme method actor. And I'm like checking out his, Wikipedia. He's like trained, you know, like he has like a fighting movie. He does jujitsu. He apparently took out 2 of his teeth for some movie he did called Birdie. He had like, you know, he ate just a bunch of red meat and steaks all the time for Joe. He is like a crazy method actor, but he is on top of that overselling it like a kabuki presentation. It's like truly fascinating. I'm blown away by it. It's like, I don't know really how else to describe it. It's crazy. I mean, he's not an actor in the modern sense. He is a performer. He's just a traditional artisan. It seems like he's doing the kind of acting that you would see in like a troupe, like rolling into a small village, you know, and he's like got switching costumes. And then he's just like, don't go over there, you know, like over hyping everything. And it's fascinating, and it works in this movie. And I think it works in all of his other movies. Like, I'm going to have to go back and rewatch every Nic Cage thing ever. It's amazing. It's made me view him in an entirely different light.
In that way, this is like the best commercial for Nic Cage possible. It's really interesting. You say the thing about how he comes in and it's like, oh, don't go over there. Like, it reminds me a little bit of the scenes in, what do you call it? The Tim Robinson sketch show.
Yes.
I Think You Should Leave. It reminds me of when he brings in somebody that is not an actor. to do some of these parts. Like the scene where they're listing things about the car, like things they'd like to see in a car. And there's just that dude with the long hair, and you're getting a truly original method of delivering these lines. And again, there too, there's a little bit of this where it's always like, there is a part where we are laughing at this guy because he is not delivering lines normally. This is a bad actor. But then it's also interesting because I hope, I'm probably reading too much into it, but I hope this is like Tim Robinson's intent with this, is that he is giving you a truly original comedic read of this stuff that completely fucking works. Like, this is a legitimate option of how to say something very strangely to make it funny. It totally works. So,
especially if it's already a funny script. Like if he's already got a funny sketch laid out and then he just needs a vessel for it. So then he finds some guy. I didn't realize that guy wasn't an actor, but it kind of makes sense. So then they just like find this guy and he's delivering these lines in a real believable way. So it's like, it's not method, but it's like he's not an actor. He's just being himself and delivering these lines, and it's funny. And I guess we're kind of laughing at him, but we're also laughing. I don't know if I buy this whole like laughing at people the same way too. Like if they're participating in stuff like maybe reality TV or something, we laugh at people. But if they're like in a sketch, like the goal is to get laughs. Like we're laughing at them. Like I don't feel bad. You're not going to make me feel bad about watching Tim Robbins' show and laughing at some of these people. Tim. I know you're going to try and kill my buzz on this, but you will not, my friend.
That's
that dude is
job,
funny.
Dude. I buzzkill only on this podcast. Welcome to the Buzzkill Corner. Listen, this is what killed the buzz for me. Is when I was in college, I saw Tim and Eric live. They did a series of live shows, and we loved Tim and Eric. Awesome show, great job. And they brought in this dude. His name was David Liebehart. He does a lot of stuff with these marionettes, and his performances are bizarre. Again, they're kind of like, they're very specific to him, and they do not have what we would traditionally consider polish in a stage performance sense. And one of the big things with Tim and Eric Awesome show is they deal so much with people that are not trained actors that it's like most of the people on that show. And the question is always there as to whether or not those people are in on the joke. Are we laughing with these people or at these people because of how bad they are at delivering these lines? And with David Liebehart, I guess I always kind of thought they use him so much. I always thought he was in on the joke. Maybe he still is. But he came out at the show and everybody went nuts because it was like, oh my God, this is going to be so funny. David Liebehart's here. And then he launched into this really long, really heartfelt speech about how happy he was to be here performing for everyone and about how he's so glad because so many people told him he would never find people that would appreciate what he does. And now he's finally found people that appreciate what he does. And the whole crowd felt bad because all of us were like, oh, we're kind of laughing at you. And to have him lay it all out there, maybe it was a masterfully delivered, like pre-planned speech to put the audience back on their feet. I don't know. I have no idea. I can't tell.
Who is this guy? I have no idea who this guy is.
You got to watch Tim and Eric. Is like a Tim and Eric deep cut. You would never have known him from anything else.
But he's a joke. Like they just beat him up on the show.
They don't. That's the argument, right? Is like, that's the exact thing we're in. Is this guy here for us to laugh at him because he has these terrifying marionette puppets that he doesn't seem to think are terrifying? He's doing very bad marionette voices that he seems to think are good. Like, are we laughing at him or are we laughing with him? In that sense, if he is not like talking to Tim and Eric and planning some of this stuff, I would argue that we're laughing at him in that sense. And that makes me feel gross. I want to believe, I really hope that he's like totally in on it. He totally gets the context. I want to believe that with all the people on like Tim Robinson's show. I want to believe that with all the people we talked a couple weeks ago about Nathan Fielder's shows. I want to believe that with all of them. But I'm what about like
Chris
worried.
Gethard's show? You ever watch that?
Yeah, Chris Gethard's show I think is different because people like Chris is creating purposefully a safe space for people that are a little bit out of the normal bounds of society, you know?
That's what he's saying. That's what he's marketing. That's what he's saying. But then you've got people in the background wearing costumes and like whatever. And he's like, yeah, we're all a bunch of freaks or whatever. I'm like, I don't know. Maybe that somehow rubs me worse That's like an intentional gathering of whatever. I don't know. Somehow that seems worse to me.
Because to me, that's just like a community building thing. That's like when you go to, we went last year to this show called Kaiju Big Battle. They do these things where it's like indie wrestling, but everybody's dressed up as a kaiju and they put like knee height buildings in the wrestling ring to make it look like they're like monsters that are wrestling in a city. And people are super fucking into it. Everybody's wearing their own costumes. You know, I saw a My Chemical Romance concert this past Saturday. People were there in like black lace wedding dresses. Yeah, dude, it was amazing.
It's so never too late, man. It's never too late for romance.
Gerard Way is singing great. Those pipes are holding up after 20 years of MCR.
20 more, man. Baby.
It's like people were wearing like full on wedding dresses and like the marching band outfits from the Black Parade. Like that's just like a community aspect. And Chris Gethard is like, he's real deal, that fucking guy. He came and gave us an improv workshop when I was 18 at Ohio State. And at the after party afterwards, he was laying out all of the like cryptid creatures that supposedly live in the woods near Ohio State. And it's like 1 a.m. and he's like, let's go fucking find some of these things. Like, let's go find some of these knee people that live out in the woods. And
yeah, I know he's obsessed with those, but I also feel like on that show, he wrapped himself in a cloak of weirdos for clout to some extent. And I think there were some people like in that show that, you know, aren't really his friends. And he just has them there because they're weird. And they were like, I don't know, the old lady who hula hoops and like does improv. And like, I don't think he's really friends with her. You know, he got his actual show and he ditched her. And I remember her feelings were hurt about that and like all this stuff. And it's like, I know there's other people that are like left behind. I don't know. I just think some like that somehow seems grosser and clickier to me than, I don't know. How we even start talking about this? We're making fun of Nic Cage. I don't even know. But
let's take it back. Yeah, because I think people were making fun of Nic Cage for a long time. And I don't think Nic Cage deserves it. I think he fucking rules. I think it's always been on purpose. I think this dude is a very good actor. He's like, my eyes are so drawn to him. I would watch him for 4 hours.
It is funny. And I'm curious if anyone making the jokes at him or making jokes about him, none of it ever felt like malicious to me. I was never like, fuck Nic Cage. It was always like, check out this weird guy. I mean, I remember in like college, we had this guy who was like, you know, a professor. He was trying to write a paper on comedy and he like came and like watched all of our stand-up shows and stuff. And I mean, if you want to see on YouTube, my visual representation of like what this is, but I have my hands like level. And he was talking about how all comedy is status, which is like, you know, a theory that applies to a bunch of stuff. So like we make fun of politics. We make fun of the president all the time because he's high status. And by making fun of him, we're lowering his status, which is just lowering it to our level. Like the whole goal of the status thing is for everyone to be at the same level. So that's why we laugh. Someone's above us, we punch up, we lower them to our level. You know, the celebrities, they're just like us. They're crazy. They're all doing all this stuff. Somebody trips and falls. Your buddy trips and falls, embarrasses himself. You laugh at him. And then you help him back up. And that laughter he's low status. It brings him back up to like neutral, like where you guys are. So I think a lot of that stuff is kind of like, there's a difference between punching down and like making fun of, I don't know, homeless people and like punching down at them and then punching down at your buddy who fell and you're trying to help him up. And I think that, I guess I'm just always having a hard time trying to figure out the difference in those things. But Nic Cage, it always felt like a buddy that you wanted to help back up. Like I was always excited about Nic Cage. I've never not liked Nic Cage. He's awesome. I saw Ghost Rider 2. I'm all in on this guy.
Wait, there was a Ghost Rider 2?
Yes, there was. It was directed by the guys from Crank. It is a shit show and it is fun. I haven't rewatched it. I've rewatched Ghost Rider a lot. I've not rewatched Ghost Rider 2, I don't think. But, you know, still good, still fun. I would love it. I mean, they have to bring Nic Cage in as the Ghost Rider in the MCU. So if they don't, it's insane. If they could just recast Ghost Rider, they're leaving money on the fucking table. They're ignorant. They don't know what they're talking about.
The only reason that they are doing Secret Wars should be so that they could bring back Ghost Rider. Nicolas Cage. Like, it's insane if they let that go. I showed Lauren the trailer for that immediately after we watched this movie, and she was like, oh my God, what is this? She doesn't have any familiar with the Ghost Rider. I had to tell her that Nic Cage, to play Ghost Rider, had to have a tattoo of Ghost Rider digitally removed from his own forearm because he already had the tattoo. The man loves Ghost Rider.
That's amazing. And I love him. Pedro Pascal.
Yes. Can we get
a champion?
Can I hit the beef? Or sorry, the thief.
Oh,
the
beef?
The thief.
Oh my God. Hit the thief.
I think you're a thief.
Pedro Pascal.
What can't this guy do? I feel like for a minute, I'm confused. I was a little confused on like the Pedro Pascal hype. I feel like why? I don't know. It just feels like everyone's like Pedro Pascal. I'm like, what has he done? He was the Mandalorian, which is very cool, but you don't even see his face the whole time. He's very monotone. I think a few people could do that. Then he was in like Wonder Woman 2, right? I feel like that's everything I've seen Pedro Pascal in. But after watching this, oh yeah, he wasn't he was awesome in Game of Thrones.
Yeah,
he was awesome. I forgot he was in Game of Thrones. Yeah, no, that was awesome. But this, I was like, I want more of this guy. He's phenomenal. He's so fun and just so pleasant. He just seems like such a pleasant dude, and it just like comes across. I don't know. He could be a monster. I'm always saying, no heroes. These actors could all be terrible, monstrous people. Pedro Pascal, he just seems like a decent guy, and I can believe that he's a villain, and I also just don't want him to be. Don't make him the bad guy. Oh my God, my heart would break if he was the real villain of this story.
Oh my God, and now
spoiler alert, he's not.
He's maybe one of the only guys one of the only characters where they've tried to pull that card of, but is he the bad guy or is he not actually the bad guy? Where you're like, there's no way he's the bad guy. We love him way too much. Like, there's no way they would let him be the bad guy in this movie. The chemistry between he and Nic Cage is so believable. It's like, it's completely real. I think maybe I should hit the beef theme.
Where's the beef?
My only beef with Pedro Pascal in this movie is that this movie is using him not as himself, which, completely would negate the premise of the movie. Like, I guess my frustration with the fact that he's here is because I feel like Pedro Pascal is a big enough actor that going into this movie, I was like, oh, it's going to be weird to have Nicolas Cage as himself. It was weird to have, what's his name from How I Met Your Mother as his agent. Like, it was weird to have
way weirder.
Insane move.
Because he's played himself like in Harold and Kumar.
Yeah.
Like, he shows up as Neil Patrick Harris. And when he gave another name or said he was the agent, I had no idea what was going on.
It really takes you out of it. Like, theoretically, going into this movie, here's where I was at. I was like, this movie should be entirely actors that I have never seen before and Nic Cage, to sell the idea that Nic Cage is playing himself. So when Pedro Pascal was in the trailers and everything, I was like, how am I not going to view this movie as just Nic Cage, the actor, and Pedro Pascal, the actor, hanging out? And the answer is because Pedro Pascal is so good that you get past it in a way that you never get past it with Neil Patrick Harris. Like, you just completely believe that he's Javi. He's Javi, man. He's Javi the whole time.
He is Javi. I guess, worst case, it's also like Pedro Pascal and Nicolas Cage hanging out. Like, I loved it. On some level, I was also excited that was happening. Neil Patrick Harris, I do love. I do have a soft spot for How I Met Your Mother somehow. And Neil Patrick Harris is great. He's just always Neil Patrick Harris to me. I can't not see him as Neil Patrick Harris. And it's so jarring when he's there. He seems out of place. He seems like more of a character than Nicolas Cage does. In a very weird, I don't know how else he could do it. It's just like the fifth guy in a sitcom. Like, if that guy from whatever Big Bang Theory ever started acting in any other movies, it would be like, what the fuck is Sheldon doing here? Like, I just feel like they have such specific energies that made them massively successful on the thing they were a part of, and leaving that, it doesn't translate the same way. So It just seems it's way more jarring to see Neil Patrick Harris than it is Pedro Pascal. Tiffany Haddish, not really jarring. It's kind of a throwaway part, I guess. Anyone could have done it.
That was a weird use of Tiffany Haddish. Good to see her.
Like Barinholtz. Sure, why not?
Yeah.
Like, Barinholtz is there. There's some funny banner about Nic Cage movies. Why would I see Crude 2? I'm an adult. Great script. It's fun. So what do you think? I did zero research on this. I think Nic Cage like produced this movie.
Mhm.
But did somebody write this for Nic Cage and pitch him on the? How do you think this came about? What do you think the origin of this whole thing is?
I think you're exactly right. I'm going to pull this up right now, but I'm willing to bet that somebody wrote this just for the hell of it, managed to get it to him, and he was like, this would be a fun thing to do at this point in my career.
It's so funny. And he does a ton of smaller indie movies. The dude just wants to act, whether it's for money or not. I don't know. It seems like he just really loves it and it's his job. And I was really kind of buying all of his thesis statements in the movie where he talks about how this is work and people are saying you're working too much. And he's like, but this is my job. All that stuff kind of resonated with me. All the monologues that he gives in the movie, I want to believe that that's actually Nic Cage talking. Like I buy it. I buy that this script somehow captured at least a portion of how he feels about the industry and about himself and how he views himself as an actor. It makes fun of the shamanistic thing that he apparently is like really actually into. It's incredible. His approval rating for me has just gone through the roof. He's amazing.
Big time. He was so game. I really respect the fact that he was so game to play a very flawed, egotistical version of himself as well. Like the idea that that scene at his daughter's birthday party just had me pulling my shirt up over my
God.
eyes. I was cringing so hard.
I couldn't watch it. It was unbearably awful.
Oh my God, dude. It would kind of suck to like have somebody write a script about you and have that be in there, but he was game for it. Like he understood the difference in that way between them critiquing him as an actual person and him, like the idea of him being critiqued. And I feel like that would be too much for a lot of actors to get past. And I'm completely basing that on a stereotypical idea of like Hollywood actors being like very image obsessed and conceited and worried about like, well, will people actually think I'm this person? He gets the bit. I think that's what I'm getting at. He understands the bit and how he fits into the bit. He gets the context. It's great.
He gets the bit, and he's also just interesting. Like he's different. He's a character unto himself. We've like as a society kind of projected a character onto him. So I want to watch this with Nic Cage. I don't know what other actor I would even care to see this for. I don't know what other actor I want to see playing himself. I don't know how many other people I would be interested in. I don't think I'd want to watch Pedro Pascal play himself.
Yeah, he doesn't quite have. I adore him. I don't think he quite has the same persona built up around him. I think the only way that it works, I mean, hell, look, being John Malkovich, I think it works for those people that I listed that have those very specific niches carved out for themselves. I think Keanu could do it for sure. You know who absolutely cannot, and who absolutely did not go for the same pitfalls that I'm praising Nic Cage for going for. Is fucking LeBron in Space Jam: A New Legacy.
Oh my God. That's fucking kill yourself, LeBron. That
the
was
complete opposite of this role. I can just picture meetings where it's like, LeBron, you have to have a flaw. Like you have to have a flaw so that you can be redeemed over the course of the movie. And he's like, yeah, my flaw is that I'm too good at basketball and I want my son to be too good at basketball.
I expect too much of my children
because they're great and I know they can do it.
I believe too much.
I'm too good a father. That's my flaw.
I just had traumatic flashbacks to that. It was really just a truly awful movie going experience. Maybe the worst thing I've ever seen in my life. And I had to see Joker twice. So that's saying something.
I love so much that is your floor. Keanu did it. I just remembered too. Keanu did it in that Netflix movie.
Yes, the Ali Wong movie.
Yeah.
Oh, that was so
I love
good.
Your soul.
Oh my God. That's so great because it's like it's really like an improv character or something like that, where they take a little thing that he kind of believes in and just crank it up to 11. Because like you ever see that clip of Keanu Reeves on what's her face, former Charlie's Angel, who she had like some talk show, the Drew Barrymore show.
Oh.
And she asks him if he's a lover or a fighter. And he's like, if you're a lover, you gotta be a fighter. Because if you don't fight for your love, what love do you have? And then he gets up like he's embarrassed already, but like he had to say it. And I'm just like, this is Keanu. Like he is, you know, saying I miss your thighs to some woman he's dating, you know, like, like maybe that's too much, but it is like, it's a believable step. They're going A to B to C to create these characters, and it's fascinating. And like, it's just very believable that Nic Cage could be self-absorbed and being into his work, and whether he is or not, I don't know. He definitely has more than one kid. He's been married a few times. He has that one kid who's like in a goth, like metal band.
Oh yeah.
You ever seen him? Long hair, all gothed out. And they seem to get along great. Like, I don't know. It's exciting. The other analogy I just thought of for his acting, which I always think of wrestling analogies, is like there's wrestlers who wrestle for TV, and then they refer to some wrestlers as like wrestling for the cheap seats. And like you're in an arena, like they punch somebody, but they want the people in the top of the arena to see them. So they make the punch bigger and like sell it like that. And that's kind of how I'm been thinking about Nic Cage's acting now, which is like everyone acts now for like the movie, but he is acting. He's acting for the people in the cheap seats. He's like just doing a little bit more, going a little over the top. And I respect the hell out of it, man. What a guy. What a gem.
That's amazing.
What a mensch. God.
Damn. That's a great observation.
Man. Any other beefs? Any other thieves?
I really liked the concept of 90s Cage being around.
Yes.
Really liked that. It was very fun. I liked the conversations he was having with 90s Cage, and that he was just talking to no one and getting confirmation of that he actually was verbalizing these conversations. That fits so well with the concept of this like really eccentric guy that we've all painted Nic Cage to be. I definitely don't have, I think the only other like beef I can think of is this movie does lose steam.
Yeah.
It gets too caught up in this plot that we didn't need that much of. Like, the meat of this movie was his interactions with everyone, his interactions with the hobby, his interactions with his family. There's a lot of stuff like his family being brought over to Mallorca that didn't necessarily make sense. It kind of, a lot of times these moves feel like bad improv scenes where you do the move live on stage and then everybody on the team has to deal with the fact that we've all seen that this is a bad move. We have to play with it now. And like when they were brought to Mallorca and his wife and his daughter are like, wait, you're fine? Okay, so I guess we leave now. It's immediately like there's no stakes you being here. It reminds me of the movie Day Shift when there's the scene of the evil vampires bringing spoilers for Day Shift, but you should not care. There's the scene where the evil vampires are bringing Jamie Foxx's wife and daughter down into like this dungeon, and then Jamie Foxx is arguing with the evil vampires later, and they keep cutting to the one evil vampire, and Jamie Foxx's daughter is just standing still for the entire conversation because she has nothing to do, nothing to say, but the continuity people knew that she should be in the scene and she should be in the shot. She is human scenery. Like there's nothing else for her to be doing there.
Yeah, I mean, it is a real trope to bring like the wife and kid into it. It kind of makes sense. I mean, it creates a fun arc. I also do like the moment when he catches the knife at the end, and I was like, "What the?" And then it becomes the movie. I was like, "This is great." They knew what they were doing. They did some very good intentional stuff there. What I always think is weird, I don't know if this is a beef necessarily, but I always think it's interesting that like at the beginning of a movie, I know there's definitely other examples of this where like the beginning of the movie, it feels like the world is huge and like they can do whatever they want. And then immediately they fly to a location and that's just where the rest of the movie is.
Yeah.
It's weird, right? Like, I don't know what that is. I'm sure there's more examples of that. Like Wedding Crashers comes to mind, where it's like, we're crashing all these weddings, all this stuff's going crazy. And then an hour and a half of the movie is like just at this house, like partying with the family or whatever. Like it is weird. I don't know if it's a problem, but it stood out to me.
It does. it does almost feel like a problem of tone anytime that happens. Because it makes it seem almost like there's more of this world that has been forgotten about. And I don't want to bring up the shit where it's like in my screenplay, New York City is a character, but to a certain extent, like being able to go to these different locales or have cutaway scenes that take place in different locales does seem like you're introducing a lot, and it makes it as though like maybe your ability to go to different places is a fundamental part of the movie. But I'm also immediately trying to figure out why that bothers me in things like this, because I noticed that as well, but doesn't bother me in Jaws, where we talked about it last week. It's just half of the movie is in Amity, and then the other half is on a very small boat.
Yeah, it doesn't bother me at all there. It kind of bothers me in like Multiverse of Madness. Yeah. Because we're kind of sold on the multiverse.
And they go three fucking places.
They go 3 places. So that's a little disappointing. And I guess maybe for Nic Cage, you're just thinking he's larger than life. This is like his whole thing. And then by the end of the movie, I was like, oh, so we just spent the whole time at this one castle. It seems kind of crazy that's Nic Cage. I mean, he's a global superstar. It's like, this could be bigger than anything. And that's kind of what we got. Mm-hmm. I was also expecting more action. I'll be honest. I was expecting some crazy fight scene. I wanted to see something awesome. Maybe some more explosions. Not enough.
Yeah.
What do you think of all that and like all the meta commentary? What did you think of how meta it was? I was kind of here for it, but they definitely had a few conversations where they're talking about their script and really describing what's going on in the movie and where the movie's going and like what the plan for the movie is. And I kind of liked it. I kind of wanted less of that and more just Nic Cage references. Like, just keep talking about Nic Cage, you know?
Yeah. I could have done with a little bit less. I think a big part of the reason that it worked when it did happen is the fact that Nic Cage obviously is a person that we already going into the movie know is involved in Hollywood. And then the basis of Javi's character is that he is obsessed with Nic Cage and wants Nic Cage to read a screenplay that he's slaved over. So I think because it was part and parcel to the 2 main characters, it works to have them talking about a script. It was right on the line for me. If there'd been any more of it, I would have been out. I think they like hit the absolute max. The cup was all the way to the top, but nothing spilled over for me.
And I'll be honest, I am a real sucker for the moments when I feel like the artist is just straight up telling you what his deal is, you know, like the monologues from Nic Cage where he's like, I'm an actor. This is what I believe in. Like, this is what acting is. I just want to hear Nic Cage tell me what acting is. It's so good. It's so fun. I mean, you know, Rick and Morty or like Community is another one where it's like, you know, if you're into Dan Harmon, I feel like he has some great, you know, storytelling points and things like that. And occasionally you'll just get a monologue from like Rick and Morty where it's like, oh, this is Dan Harmon venting right now. Like, this is just straight up how he feels about storytelling. And he is telling you right now. And I'm kind of a sucker for it, you know, like, I don't know. Felt like I got that in I saw BJ Novak's new movie. It's like there's a few scenes in that where it's like BJ Novak is he's just through the characters in the story. He's just straight up telling you his point of view on this thing. And I love it. I like getting POVs from people, you know, POVs. That's my go-to Google search, POV.
Oh my God. Yeah. I really enjoyed one of my favorite moments in this movie was Nicolas Cage quitting acting over the phone to his agent. It felt like what a real I'm quitting acting announcement from Nic Cage would be. I wonder if he had that draft already, if that was from him or if that was something the writer director put in, because it just felt real.
Yeah.
And you know what? When we're talking about endings, we got to say that's the end of this episode. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. Tim, I just cut you off. What were you about to say?
Kevin, one final question.
Oh, hit me.
What's your favorite movie of all time? And why is it Paddington 2?
Oh my God, Tim, I am so glad you asked. You're correct in that it's Paddington 2. And I'll tell you why next week when we talk about Paddington 2 on this podcast. That's right. We weren't going to let you go without mentioning the Paddington stuff. We're just going to do a whole episode on it. I could not be more excited.
Paddington 2, baby. It made Nic Cage cry. Did it make Kevin cry?
I do realize how low that bar is. Oh my God.
Find out next week, baby.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Give us 5 stars, 5 stars. And until next week, stay nerdy. Bye.
Bye. Are they going to make a sequel to this movie? I think I want a sequel to Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. I want their Paddington 2, but for Unbearable Weight.
Oh my God, that'd be incredible. Which all that means is you just get Hugh Grant in there as a missing piece you never knew you were missing.
Yeah, you throw Hugh Grant in there, we're good.